Ready to pass the CPA exam faster? Visit cpapass.ai. Today, donor restrictions versus board designations, the FAR net asset trap. Many candidates fail the FAR section because they confuse who has the authority to restrict funds in a not-for-profit organization. Under FASB ASC 958, net assets are the NFP equivalent of corporate equity, but they are classified into exactly two categories based on donor intent. The number one trap on the CPA exam is mistaking internal board decisions for external donor restrictions. Let's break down this distinction so you can avoid this common trap and protect your score. FASB ASC 958 simplifies net asset reporting into just two classes: net assets without donor restrictions and net assets with donor restrictions. Net assets without donor restrictions represent flexible money that the NFP can use for any mission-related purpose. In contrast, net assets with donor restrictions have explicit strings attached by an external donor. These restrictions can be purpose-based, time-based, or permanent, such as endowments where the principal must be held forever. Remember, the old three-category system of unrestricted, temporarily restricted, and permanently restricted is completely obsolete. If you see those three categories on your CPA exam, they are outdated distractors. The examiner's favorite trap involves board-designated funds. Suppose a nonprofit's board of directors votes to set aside $100,000 of unrestricted cash for a future building renovation. Because the board has the authority to reverse this decision at any time, these funds are not donor restricted. Under GAAP, board-designated resources must remain classified as net assets without donor restrictions. Only an external donor has the legal authority to restrict net assets. If the board designates it, it is still unrestricted. Do not let the exam trick you into classifying internal board designations as restricted support. This is a major distractor. Here is an absolute rule for the statement of activities. Expenses always exit without restrictions. All NFP expenses must be reported as decreases in net assets without donor restrictions. Expenses never directly reduce net assets with donor restrictions. To spend restricted money, the NFP must first satisfy the donor's condition, which triggers a reclassification. This reclassification releases the funds, moving them from the restricted column to the unrestricted column. Only after the funds arrive in the without restrictions column does the actual operating expense occur. Think of this like moving cash from a locked safe into your active wallet before spending it. Let's look at the exact journal entries for a reclassification. When a donor's restriction is met, we record a reclassification. We debit reclassifications out from net assets with donor restrictions, and we credit reclassifications into net assets without donor restrictions. This entry nets to zero overall but shifts the net assets between classes. Watch out for the double counting revenue trap here. This reclassification is not new revenue. It is just a balance sheet shift. Once the funds are released, we record the operating expense with a debit to program expense and a credit to cash, entirely within the net assets without donor restrictions class. To master this highly tested FAR topic, keep these core rules on your personal cheat sheet. First, only external donors can restrict net assets. Boards can only designate, leaving funds unrestricted. Second, remember that expenses always exit from net assets without donor restrictions. Finally, watch out for outdated three-category terminology on the exam. For more practice with realistic task-based simulations and multiple-choice questions on these exact NFP rules, head over to cpapass.ai to sharpen your skills.